some really good internal processes for the data. I'm assuming you're going to talk a little more about that, and also project data as well. It's going to be terrific. Remember to try to give feedback in the apps. If you can get in. We're still working with that. I know our app person is actually Wes, so as you can understand, trying to catch him and run him down is a big thing too. So please be patient with us, but we're getting that app fixed as soon as possible. So I'm going to turn it over to Brent. I'm sure when the AV person comes in, they'll get you a cord and cable, and hopefully everything will go well. But looking forward to a great event, and this is the first of many great sessions. So thanks, Brent, and welcome.
All right, so this is totally not how I planned to start the presentation, but we're going to get through this, and hopefully the image comes up. Just the first slide would have been just me giving a quick intro of myself. My name is Brent Melody. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Turner Fleischer Architects, and I'm an architect by practice. Been in the industry about 23 years, been at Turner Fleischer for 3. My entire career has been focused on how our practice has been digitized and continues to be digitized over the course of the past years and the years to come. We have just different ways of what architecture means and different pieces of data that we connect with. And what I'm going to show today is how we actually are able to tap into data from various sources and harness that data for various means. So a bit about Turner Fleischer. We're over 250 employees now. We're located in Toronto, and we have a small satellite office in Halifax. And we span multiple, well, it looks like we're getting closer, which is good. I see 2 displays here. We span multiple practice types. The bulk of our work is in residential and mixed use, as well as commercial and industrial. And we have an interiors design department. We do wayfinding, or what we call experiential graphic design. And we basically provide soup to nuts services for our clients, starting with programming and schematic, leading straight through to construction administration on site. I'm going to pause here for a second to see if this does the trick. I'm at about the point where I really need my slides now, because I can't wing the rest of that without the picture. Magic. So, thanks guys. So this was the video I was going to show. I'm just going to let it go quickly because it's cool. We, when we hired our team, I govern the digital practice department. There's 10 of us, and part of what we said was every time somebody comes in, we want to do stuff with our studio. So this was, hey, we've got a Revit model we designed, we did construction, we expanded it, go in there, take our model, let's now scan what we've done. So we have a couple different types of laser scanners. So we take real life data, real life points of the data we have, different quality scanners. So this is our ZBrivo, it's about to jump to the higher quality. And we wanted to train some of the ways that we bring digitization to our profession. Existing conditions capture is huge. There's always something going on. This is our Faro scanner, so this brings the higher quality. So just a little bit, so I was going to cycle through this to give an intro just to the space, because the space is important, because it's my playground of data, my playground of action, of things that we can do. So I mentioned this is us, this is what we do, and today we're about making data dance. And that's what I'm here to bring to you. And I get so passionate about this because this has been my career. It's all about how do I tap into the information we have, how do I make it, what can I do with it, where does it come from, etc. So the start was, well, where are we pulling information from? What am I doing with this information? Well, it's from us. It's from all of us in this studio. We've got 255 strong people making information that's all coming together in various ways, various types, from various data sources. I need to bring them together and do things with it. So, I I have SQL. SQL allows me to grab the data and store it in a specific location. We have an active ERP. We make projects. We track our financial data. We create data. And then I don't want to duplicate that data. I want to bring that data and use it across our organization. We have BIM. And the building information modeling process gives us a plethora of data that sometimes we don't know what to do with it, but there's a lot of things we can do. Revit is our BIM authoring tool. Gives us a lot of data. That's what we use. We have the cloud. So you take that data, you drop it in BIM 360 / Autodesk Construction Cloud / whatever they choose to call it next year. And then I put more data around it. So I've got the BIM data. I have all the collaboration system data. So that ecosystem is growing. Now to complicate the world, we have another cloud. We have M365, SharePoint, purchases, other data, operational, it all tie up and should interact. We have what we call an apps server. So this is an internal development server using a Linux Ubuntu backbone that allows us to build applications for us to create stuff. Clearly I'm going to talk about this stuff, all right? We have IoT sensors. So throughout our studio, we've scattered sensors all over the place to bring together real-time performance data for metrics that we've defined for ourselves to analyze. So this is my ecosystem. And you can see I have stuff everywhere. What's the most critical thing? I don't want to duplicate stuff. I want things entered once, harnessed everywhere. So what do? How do I visualize it? That's the big question. The data and all these sources, what do? Well, I want to pull them all together and bring in Power BI. Power BI is my playground and my tool to do stuff like this. And basically this entire presentation is what's a piece of data and what have I done with it and what type of dashboards do we utilize to harness it as I bleed towards an ultimate goal. But Power BI is a Microsoft product, free, which is great. Pay if you want to do online stuff, and you can pull data from the world, from anywhere. And as long as I can connect pieces, I can do stuff with it. So what do? What do we at Turner Fleischer do with the data? These are the things we do. And I'm going to go through each one of these, showing examples of how we make our data dense to achieve an outcome. So optimizing workflows, analyzing financial data. Financial data is critical. Obviously, ranking projects for a purpose. We want revenue, we want profit, we want bid scope, schedule, budget, etc. We want to track how we use our software, examine how we engage our support, and then the digital twins has been my 20 plus year passion, and we're finally ready to realize that. So, project workflows. These are our people, and these are the people that make the data, and these are the people where we have to pull the data from. So what do they actually do? Stuff like this. And this is how they do it. And data is everywhere and disconnected in different formats. Can I download this application to do A, B, C? Well, how does it connect to X, Y, Z? I don't care. You don't care. That's what I get, right? We have to care. How does this stuff come together? So inside Turner Fleischer, we have a couple of operational teams. I've got my knowledge management director right here. Come to his class tomorrow afternoon before the drinks. This will be good about knowledge management. So my digital practice department, I've got Alice. Did Rocky join? He's here too somewhere. It's all good. And the finance team. And when I graduated university, never did they say, Brent, you're going to dissect financial information. Like that's so. I said, well, I'm an architect, but that's what we're doing. So we all came together, this team of 5, and I got to shout out my last guy here, software developer. My in-house software developer, part of the digital practice department. It's awesome. I say, how? I'd like to make something. He listens to my blurbs, and he actually makes me something that does what I request. It's really cool. So we all came together and said, okay, how do we achieve the single source of truth? But we really achieve it. Not mythologically achieve it. Not false BIM interpretation of it where you jam everything into Revit and anything that's not there is not singly sourced. Single source of truth means you make data once. Any tidbit of data, It's not Revit, it's not any of the competitors. I have a piece of data and I'm making it in one spot only. So, we have an ERP. Uninet. If there's anybody from Uninet at this conference, I'm going to shout them out good. That's what we use. It does the job, and it has a lot of data. So what data do I need from the ERP? So what do we use? Well, we have project info. It's critical. Have you ever gone into Revit and said, I need to put the project name on the title block, the project manager, etc.? Never type it in. Pull it from your ERP. That's an example, right? Timesheets. How much time are we charging on projects? How much cost do we have? Expenses. Who's our, they call it vendor info. Clients, purchasers. You ever enter the client name on the Revit title block? Do you type it? That's terrible. What purchases do we make? How much software are you all making me buy? And why? Is it needed? And then vendor info, additional client info, client contacts, purchasing contacts, invoice contacts, blah, blah, it's all there. Scattered all over Uninet. Project accountants, they review all of the data. So I need bits of it all. And I don't know what I need today versus tomorrow, but I know the data's there. How do I know? Because it's stored there. And I have an awesome director of finance, Julia Zai, Turner Fleischer, she's awesome. So I sit with her and I say, what do you got? This is what she's got. This is her view in the world of financial ERP data. And it's just a bunch of tables. And she knows them inside out. And if she doesn't, I say, hey Julia, can I get this big piece of data? She goes and finds it, because it's there somewhere. What do we do with it? We dream up SQL queries. You do the SQL query, pull it together. How much do I need to see today? Well, filter it properly, show me what I want, connect the tables. I want a bit of this plus a little bit of this, filtered by this, bring it all together. I have a data source. Tomorrow, filter it differently. It doesn't matter. It's all one data. It's a different window into the data prescribed by me, by stakeholders, so others within the organization, and we find it accordingly. Then what do? How do I pull it? I need the data into Power BI. I need to visualize it. I need to see it. So we get it out using what's called API calls, and it essentially tunnels into the data source, takes that SQL query, pulls out that data live, and makes it available for me to visualize in things like Power BI. So we have data. Great. Now I need forms. And we've built a collection of custom forms, basically that are forms that enhance the data dialogue that otherwise gets lost in places like email. Example, can you make a project number for me? Well, all the information I need, I'm going to type it, copy it, this, that, it all gets lost right from that foundation of the start of the project. So we needed forms. And we said, you know what? I need to start to request things associated to projects or associated to people. And all the data starts in our ERP. So this is an example. We create a project form. So I already have a project created. And we define what data do I want. And those yellow numbers, yellow fields, those are things I never, ever want to type once it's entered once. So grab the data, pull it, place it into a form, a title block, a whatever you desire. And now I'm able to create little applets that take this data and enhance it further. So, we went on a form journey. And the first thing we said was, I don't want to ever see a BIM execution plan again in Word format. So we made a form-based BXP. What's the first part of a BIM execution plan? Project number, project name, project manager, blah, blah, blah. Pull it all together. Then we enhance it. Well, hold on, I need to do existing conditions capture. We need laser scans, internal. So what were people doing? Well, they'd walk up to people on my team and say, hey, can you scan? Yep, send me the info. And then we'd get an email with all that information copied. And then finally, there'd be some particulars. So you can see the trend here. Model fabrication, you need a 3D print. Here's the request. They're all project-based. They're all rooted on the data. And then these forms are capturing the additional information. So what are we scanning? What are we printing? I have an addition to the project, so an additional service or a new project. I want to create a form. Send in my data. The form pushes data to, pulls data from, and I have this dialogue. We have internally a process called a client evaluation. So you want me to do a new project, what's the risk, right? So we set up the project, we set up the desire, and we capture the request of the risk. We capture the knowledge around that risk. Fill out the form, all of the reviews, the approval to proceed or the denial to not proceed. All captured, all queryable. That's what's critical, all queryable. Financial forms, so we have to hold amounts. I do work for you this month, but I'm not going to bill you. I want to bill you next month. Or we just won the project at the end of the month, so there's no billing until the following month. So we hold the finance to the following billing cycle. Why did we hold it? Well, I know why. Do you know why? Does the CFO know why? Does the finance team know why? It's all captured. Then there's people management. I have an architecture license. Okay, so I want to be reimbursed. Well, for what? What's my license? How much is it? When does it renew? Fundamental questions. So these forms are, I'm a person, I've got a manager, and then I have a request. Well, all of that people, manager, who am I? It's all in the ERP. Pull that data, enter the particular, and I have a form. I need a new project. And this is huge. We have fee proposals. I can't tell you the amount that go through. And it's not just new project requests, but additional scopes to my project. So we're tracking this process over and over again, and there's a lot of back and forth modifications. What state are they all at? How do we run the business and push it all forward? That's all tracked, starting with, I need something. Put the request in. Then more general studio, I have a team event. Quality. Practice advisory review. I need to engage a senior architect, a senior designer to review my work. Well, when and at what stage? Is it drawings and specs? Is it during construction documents? Is it schematic? What are all the particulars? And what was the outcome? Am I doing good? Am I doing bad? If I'm doing bad, what did I do to fix? All started. So we go on, and we're looking at building more and more. So project-based forms that are tracking the movement of information throughout the life cycle as it continues. And you can see here, we're going into construction. You go into construction, so much more information comes, and when I think of my ultimate goal, all that information needs to have a connectivity throughout my ecosystem. So great, I have my forms, I have my ERP, now I want to start visualizing. And a bunch of these slides now we're going to look at how I make the data dance in Power BI. So this example here, this is my fee proposal request. We're able to jump in and out. This is all the information generated from the ERP and from the forms pulled together, showing me the status of our requests. I can filter by project manager. So here I'll filter by myself, there by others. How many requests do I have that are active, filled, as in approved, rejected? What state are they in? The data is at our fingertips. Our marketing team can take it, progress it, etc. The BIM execution plan. Never do I have to look at a Word document again. So I can filter by project manager, filter by project itself. Go through a bunch of tabs and I can see the desired BIM uses, the software, the schedule, the consultants, who's on the project, when are my milestones, and my personal favorite, the LOD matrix. The entire level of development matrix plugged into a database, allowing me to filter through the components, what's been selected on the project or not. All data driven, completely outside of that old Word document in Excel file. Our practice advisory review, again, ERP, form data, what's the state of my engagement? How many projects do I have submitted waiting for a quality review, allowing me to progress to the next level? What's out of, what can be, where do I have to push them? Where do I press them? Where am I on track, etc. Model stats. This one's huge. So we built the system to bring Revit, pull it out, categorize it, pull the data into SQL, correlate the saved data, and give us a dashboard to have a scoring of what we're tracking against our metrics, that's our standard, and we can score our projects relative to how well they're behaving up to our standards. We have a building code matrix, we can analyze who's used the matrix. We have naming conventions, we can analyze models that are properly named, improperly named, and give my department a target of where we need to interact at the project level just to better the health of our project level data. Because we all know in the world of Revit, this model health is kind of like the foundational information that makes the quality of our design deliverables better or worse. And we've got BIM uses. So I can track the BIM uses at our project level. This is our laser scanning. This is our computational design initiatives. So what little applets have we built, and when, and how much time did it take? Our model fabrication. Are they on schedule, not on schedule? We estimated how long it takes. What's the actual time it took? Our visualization initiatives, advanced level visuals, whether they're videos, renderings, animations, etc. Who, what software, what application. So that's just a little snippet. I can give hour lectures on each one of those dashboards alone, but that brings all that data together and gives me a sweeping overview. Now I can look and say, well, what more can I do? If I can touch all this data, where do I have a bit of a gap? And our biggest gap right now, studio-wide project tracking. And I've worked a lot with our project coordinators, our project managers, and as I want to understand, well, what do you mean? What do you do? What is the actual problem statement? This is the problem statement. Everybody's got an Excel, and everybody's Excel does something, and we show a milestone of X and a milestone of Y. I have this sub-milestone. I call it 70%, they call it 60%. One client wants 80%. What's the difference? We have milestones. Great. They have dates. Then we have people. Well, one of those trackers uses staff 1, 2, 3. Somebody uses our actual roles. Another one uses come on. We have major people, major milestones. So what do you think we're doing? We're going to pull them all together, portray it in Power BI, and we're in the process right now of building that data backbone. So what's the input for those milestones? It's not going to be Excel. It's going to be a little input applet, similar to those forms. Read my project data, enter my milestones, visualize it here. And Power BI's got Gantt charts like you wouldn't believe. Find the right visual, interact, and each department will get their view into their project tracker. All those Excel files will disappear. And that's just one little project. So that's project workflows. There's a lot there. So much more. I'm doing okay on time. Financial data. And this is a big one because in the role of project manager, scope, schedule, budget has been drilled in my head from day one. How well is my project performing? Take off the project manager role, look at a business management role, how well is our organization performing? So there's two lenses, both inherently intertwined. So some of the things we've built, we said, okay, hold on, let's take a step. When I started at Turner Fleischer, I said, let's analyze the things we buy technologically. So I put this up and I said, well, let's track all of our purchases. From what vendors? How much money are we spending from the Autodesk giants versus Adobe versus Trimble? These are the big names. How often? What's the spend trend? So I have all that information I can track. Why do I have peaks and valleys? Why has our Zoom spending gone up? I know the answer, but it's gone up, right? That's cool. Autodesk, it will go up. What do I do? So I can track all of that. So I'm picking on Autodesk. They're cool. They're the sponsors. They rock. It's all good. So I can track that. Then I get to the nuts and bolts, and not many people like it, the timesheets. We need timesheets. We're people, right? It's a people-based business. We got to submit timesheets every week. So somehow I inherited the timesheet police, and it's fun. Every Friday I'll pull this up, and I say, hey, we've got 80 unsubmitted timesheets. I send the messages out. I listen for the curse words across the studio. I don't hear them, but I'm sure it's under the breath. But that's what we can track. And we want to make sure that timesheets are entered on a timely manner. And that's a critical thing. So this is a people behavior thing. Data helps me to nudge the behavior. But why do I care about their behavior? Well, it leads to what we call PM bill review. So every week leading into the billing cycle of a monthly cycle, we've got to review our projects. How much are we going to bill? Well, if I'm a project manager, how do I know what I want to bill if I don't have timesheets showing me how much time is charged? So we get those timesheets in, I can check my billing every week, and when I get to our billing cycle end, I'll be on the green instead of on the red. And we have this data, all this data updates every single day in the backbone. This is all done through our ERP system, but I have visibility across the entire org with this data. Back to those timesheets, when I fill them out, what am I entering? So it's not, hey, Brent worked 40 hours. No, we have a work breakdown structure. We have an operational work breakdown and a project level. So this dashboard is to help people know what is our WBS. So they can search it, they can filter, they can select. So what was on knowledge management, they can select our general studio, they can go to the meetings, and they can see, well, where do I charge what type of meetings, and I'm able to see the information. If they're helping us on digital practice, they can go to my project, see what I have, select one, and fill out their timesheets. So it's just a way to visual, otherwise you give them this big long spreadsheet and say, just go find it, it's in there. Search in Excel. Let's do that. This is fun. Then we can update the backbone and the ERP, and this gets updated. With that, now I'm putting my operational management on. I can watch as all the time charging is coming in. So these are our operational projects. I can see who's charging to what. We look often at meetings. We spend a lot of time at meetings, so I have its own little dedicated graph. How much time is being spent on meetings? What type of meeting? Team meetings, department meetings, ad hoc meetings, fun meetings, useless meetings, I don't know. Tell me what's going on, right? Who's helping me in digital practice? So I know Alice has a project. Who's helping her? Well, this will tell me if I filter by that code. Who's working on knowledge management with Marco? Same concept. So we see all the data live every single day. I can come in here and have fun. And that's my operational hat. Now let me put my project hat on. And this is a thing of beauty. This, I can now see the active state of spend on my project at any moment. So timesheets are being filled out. I filtered by myself as PM. I can select any one of my projects, see the spend, what part of the project, how many hours, is it meeting what I expect? Are we spending too much time on meetings, not enough time on producing? I can start to analyze all of that. Are we still working on a project that I thought was finished? Is it doing well? So this can all get extended because all that information is at my fingertips. So are we doing a lot more than we're building? That's not good. Are we doing quick and building the whole? That's pretty good. So we're able to analyze and see all of that with access to all this data readily at my fingertips. So that's financial data. And a lot of architects, some designers, struggle with financial data. That's not our bread and butter. That's not how we were brought up. We're about design, thinkers, creativity. So put the financial data in front of them. Don't let them try to hunt through and find it, and you get that value. So, that first financial, we buy a lot of software. It's crazy the amount of software we have. But how do we do when we use it? Are we doing well? Are we using it effectively? So, tracking software usage. This here is our Revit behavior analysis. So I'm able to select various functions within Revit, filter by user, manager, department, etc., and see how it's being used. Look at usage trends over time, number of uses, number of people using it. So if it's one person using it 1,000 times, or 100 people using it one time each, there's value in both, right? So I can filter through different types of plugins, CTC, Ideate, we have our own toolbar. I can look at how often Revit crashes, how often I get failures, how often we're using functions like delete or escape. So, so all of that can be analyzed. That was interesting. That was a good catch too. It's still going. That was weird. Do I talk too much with my hands and I'm shaking this entire... All right, let's keep this going. This has been a technologically interesting session here. Lucky I'm the CTO. So to achieve this, right, we have journal files in Revit. We have a script that sweeps across all the machines, captures the journal files, timestamps them, and delivers them, pushes them to a SQL database. So now I have time-stamped journal file data going back years. It's massive. So then I go to Power BI and I say, look at that SQL, and just give me a 6-month window, because if I looked, I think if I did the full 5 years, Power BI laughs at me and freezes. And I don't blame it, right? So 6 months of data, so it's a rolling 6 months, so I can just watch these trends. And if we just recently got Ideant added on. I don't see people using it. I'm not going to renew it, right? And it gives me all that type of information. And if we do have people using it, why are they using command number 1 and all those other good ones, nobody's touching them? We have a learning issue, a knowledge sharing issue. Something's going on, training needs, something has to happen, right? So that's our Revit usage. Then, Autodesk, we're 100% cloud now, subscription, etc. And what data they have. So I export the data from our managed console, and this is what I did with it in Power BI. So who has what? What role has an AEC collection seat? What role has docs? What role has nothing? And is that good, is that bad? Why do some PMs use Revit a lot more than other project managers? Why do some project coordinators use Autodesk docs daily and others use it once a quarter? What's going on? Different projects, or is there a reason? So all this data is there, and one of the most important ones is that magic number of 214. When I start to hit near that, I'm out of Revit licenses. I need to buy more stuff, and then there's that whole process. So I can watch this grow, I can watch uses, those old versions. I want to see 2017 disappear. Some people are still hitting those old versions. Why? Hit that, who was it, find out, upgrade the project, gone. 2016 is finally gone, those old ones, those lingering ones have to disappear. All that's at my disposal. So, that's good stuff. Okay. Support. We have all this stuff happening. How do I use it? I don't know how to use it. Nobody taught me. Alright? So, we've got 2 types of support. In Turner Fleischer, we have our digital practice department, and we have an external information technology consultant. As CTO, I kind of get to govern the both of them, which is awesome, but they're unique. And getting people to know, where do I get the help I need? If it's internet, networking, backbone infrastructure, cybersecurity, disaster recovery, etc., that's all IT. So that entire framework, all important. They manage that, they make sure it's rocking, they make sure their skill sets are up to date and current, and they're learning. Digital practice, we cover all this, and for me this is more fun, right? This is what I want to play with. R&D, come on, that's the best, right? Design systems and tools, how do we make our deliverables, how do we make our content and actually produce, what are we doing with them? What's that consistent technological approach? How do we set project goals and solutions? What should I do with BIM? Do I need laser scanning, model fabrication? Do I need a virtual reality experience? Why, who, what, all of that's there. And we're there to provide the BIM coordination, the BXP generation, help with all of that at the project level, coordinate with those consultants, right? We're just architecture, interiors, and wayfinding signage. So we need structural, mechanical, electrical, civil, et cetera, et cetera. We all have to interact external from us. And then we have to train, and it's there. So, with those 2, there's tickets. We have a ticket system. And if you need help, all we tell people, just send the email. You don't even have to go in and fill out a form for this one. Just send an email, we grab the email, plug it into our system, gets correlated in our ticket form, and it gives me all this data. Who's submitting tickets, what department, how often, what is it about? Is it software, is it hardware, is it etc.? All that data is there. This helps us understand, are we doing well answering tickets? Are we doing well training? Are we doing well knowledge sharing? Marco's class tomorrow. Are we doing it here, right? How do we better it? That's what this data tells me. And then the same with our external consultant. I've said to them, they have their own system. I said, great, I want this. So they give me regular exports that I keep updating monthly, and I can see who's submitting what ticket. An example, so-and-so needs a new computer. I'm like, really? Didn't we just upgrade? Well, they've been having issues all year, and they've put in a lot of tickets. And I go here. No, it didn't. Oh, well, I was told, okay, let me follow up. Dead silence after that. The power of the data, right? And it's not the only use for it, but what are we putting tickets in? How many times do I need new hardware? Is the software progressing so much that we have to start thinking of revamping our systems because I have constant issues on computer performance? I get that all from here. And I can see that because it's a disturbing view, that's why it's tucked away there. But if I focus on that, I see all the contents of the ticket. So that gives me all this ecosystem, and I can now think of, okay, now I can hit my passion. So I've done all of that with Power BI, I've connected all this data, still connecting data, still get feedback internally saying, hey Brent, can you add X to this and Y to this, and we figure out how to do it, great. Then I have my real passion, which is the digital twin. And the digital twins now gives me my BIM data, my spatial data, and asset-specific data. And I'm organizing how all of that can come together in a way that's meaningful for us to use and for us to portray. So when it comes together, you get to that age-old question. Well, who's the digital twin for? Anybody, right? But how do you start? Well, let's start right back to that first video slide. We have a studio. We did a design. We built it. We have a model. Went through construction. We've done minor mods to it. We have all this data. We have all of our construction data, asset data, right? We know where it is. And I now start to get performance data. It's ripe for digital twin. So let's define for us what we can do. So the first thing was our IoT sensors. So I described that a bit earlier, but this is our SQL. Sorry, this is our Power BI of the IoT sensor pulling the data from SQL. Sorry, I didn't describe it earlier. That was a previous presentation I did. So in our studio, right now we have 7 active sensors around the studio, broadcasting and registering their value every 5 minutes, saved to a SQL database. That SQL database is simply shown here as a visual in Power BI. And I can go from temperature, humidity, pressure, etc., particulate matter. This slide was made before the wildfires in Canada. The particulate matter was awesome, not because you smelled campfire, it was terrible last week, by the way. You close the door in the studio, and you're in the studio saying, I think I smell campfire. Well, if I had the slide of our particulate matter one, it spiked last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, inside. And I said, well, there you go, that's data at its best, right? So now we can learn from that and plan. So that's the intention of why you want the data. But this is our data. So we have all of these sensors. Then I have a facility manager on my team, and his mission is obviously running the studio. To run the studio, there's a whole host of information that he has. And I've said to him, we've just got to correlate this. The digital twin will be so powerful, the concept. If I want the information of the microphone, I want to click on the microphone and see the information. Extend that, we're playing with augmented reality, one of Alice's fun projects. I want to point at the microphone and see pieces of the information that's pertinent for me in the moment. In order to accomplish all that, I need the information somewhere. This is my M365 cloud, it's in one spot, it's accessible anywhere, and can be therefore connected by anywhere. How do you connect it? I need a relationship between the item and where I'm visualizing it. Simple as that. The other thing we do in our digital twin is manage our people. So again, we have the Revit model. Revit model has all the spaces have properties and data on them. We take that data and we hone in on specifics. So this is where I sit. You click on my desk connects you to information about me, pulled from our ERP. Information about my data port number, my voice port number, manual about how my desk functions, connected to the previous slide, and there's a whole host of information there. Great, so where does it all go? What do I do with it? And this is my awesome ultimate culmination. 2+ years at Turner Fleischer, and here's Autodesk gets all the kudos for this, the introduction of Tandem. So Autodesk Tandem is their digital twin platform. Kind of wraps around ACC. So we have our office model in ACC, Tandem wraps around. So here I'm just showing we can build some views, hone in on some pieces of data. So here I'm just looking for our desk view. So now I'm our facility manager. I want to start to do something with our desk data. I click my desk, there's my hyperlink to the information, the operational manuals about my desk, for example. I may want to see my IoT sensors. So grab that stream visualized in Power BI, connect it into Autodesk Tandem, and I'm now seeing the history of my sensors live in the virtual environment of my building itself. I can click on the sensors, hone in on a type, and bring up their heat map views, which I really love to use. And now I can see, at a glance, as a facility manager, where is my studio? Hot, cold, under pressure, under high barometric pressure or low, high humidity, low humidity, high particulate matter. I can analyze, figure things out, see the information live streaming from our SQL database, through Power BI if needed, and I have a digital twin that's purpose fit right now for those main functions for return inflation. What else can I do? I can show this to the clients. I can show this here. The digital twin, this works for us. So how does it work for you? Let's talk about that. What do you manage? What do you function? What irks you as a facilities manager? What irks your clients? What irks our clients? What's in our buildings that needs some form of management, even if it's just file management for operation manuals, warranty, finances, etc. All of that is applicable data that can be connected through the concept of a digital twin. And as long as and I go right back to my beginning, as long as the data, you know where it's coming from, you know what it is, and you know how to connect it. And that's the biggest piece. What's my connector between source A, source B, source C that prevents me from saying, oh, I'll just type it again over here, and then over here. And then there's typos. And then Brent comes by and tries to connect all these things, and nothing connects. Because they spelled Brent Mowdy over here, and Brent M over here, and B Mowdy over there. Data sucks. So we want to bring it all together, make it real, make it live, make it single source, and make it absolutely awesome. And that's it. Thank you. So questions, comments. There's got to be some questions. Mr. Roccolo.
Thanks, Brian.
I know him, by the way. No. Solid cat. Awesome.
Thank you. I always believe you can only manage what you measure. That's a little phrase that we have. How do you convince people that the data is of value? I'm sure you have some people in the studio that still don't see the value in it. What's your method?
So it's when I like to kind of get them on board to define the data, because that's a fair point. And when I think of the project financials, my first dashboard had a lot more stuff in it. And we would sit there and refine it, and we say, as a project manager, do they care about that? Do they care about that? Why are you showing them this? This causes confusion, this causes questions. So working with beta testers, and to just say, hey, when you're looking at your project's status, what do you look at? What do you go try to find right now? And you listen to them talk? And then I try to devise where it is. But oftentimes it's hard because it is subjective. So even when we rolled out the financial project, some project manager would say, hey, but hold on, my project is just this little bit different, and I wish I saw the data this little different way. So it makes it difficult. The studio schedule initiative, that's what we're going through right now. So how do I define what each department wants to see in a schedule? And how do I accommodate all those differences so that I don't actually make 6 different systems, and I make something that can actually work for everybody? So it is hard.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question. Yes, sir.
You talked about connecting things like Revit to manuals and things like that, and then you have to have that code between the two. How did you actually build that bridge? Were you using certain software, or was it custom built?
So on the digital twin side, so Tandem, that's why Tandem works. So that was the digital twin platform that allowed me to connect the sources, and it honors from Revit the object GUID as well as any of the parameters. It all kind of flows through. So I was able to build those connectors because they were all exposed, right? In my past, it's always been what's that common denominator? And if you're not a Revit user, then you would go to the IFC files, Industry Foundation class, and IFC pulls out your Revit, your ArchiCAD, any platform, and those fundamental GUID identifiers, coupled with unique identifiers, coupled with categories. And if you're using a common data taxonomy, which is what the industry standards are pushing for buildings, for plant, for civil, common data taxonomy means I'll be able to connect like components if I'm using certified authoring tools. So it's a promise, but it work. It does work. It works for doors, works for walls. It gets complicated with complex pieces, right? You and then.
So you talked about, you had a slide up there that said single source of truth.
Yes.
But you're talking a lot about different products, Revit, Tandem, your ERP. What is there an actual single source of truth? Or are you saying that data stream is kind of your single?
The single source of truth of data, not of software.
Got it.
Because in my 20 years in, I've never been on a project that uses one platform. So even us, we're a Revit shop, great. Well, guess what? Our buildings sit on something, and that something is DWG Civil 3D usually. So for me, that was the old mythological promise. Pick an application, and it will have everything. Totally not true.
I had a question. You said you were bringing that Power BI information into Tandem. Are you importing the data set? Does it allow you to import a Power BI data set, or are you just going back to the source?
It's a reconnection from the source. Yeah. So what I'm looking at I want a better connectivity to Power BI, so that once it's manipulated in the Power BI side, this will go Power BI, Tableau, or any of the competitor of that nature. I'd like that to flow easier and more easily into the digital twin. But Power BI is the framework, and once we validated it in isolation, then the logic was replicated, but the data was still from the same source.
If you're to do all that work in Power BI, they should just have some sort of...
Just point to it and just say, put that Power BI in that stream. So if there's Autodesk in the room, if there is, that's what I want. And that's one thing I like about Tandem is because it's still beta-ish. I don't know the state of it. I think it's commercial, but the forum is great. And whenever we find something that's not what we expect, they're on it. And they think that heat mapping, they introduced it. It wasn't working. We submitted. I swear, a week later, it was all working beautifully. And I said, yes, in time for the presentation. That was like 2 months ago. Yes, sir.
You guys have what seems like an interesting mix of custom development tools sitting next to commercially off-the-shelf tools. How do you all decide when to own versus when to rent?
That's my job apparently as CTO. So yeah, I always say so in that slide of people, so there's Marco, Director of Technology, and I didn't mention Saji, he's the Director of Director of Technology, Marco, Knowledge Management, sorry. So between the three of us, we'll often look at something and say, okay, what's the cost? What can we build? Go to our software developer, dude, does this make sense? Can you do it? Yep, I can do it in about 400 hours. Okay, let's talk about that. What's the commercial cost? And then, then we do just the cost value analysis. Because the problem with custom built, as you can imagine, everything Hal has made, any glitch, fix it, change it, fix it. It's got to be instant. Like, wait, hold on, Revit's broken, and we're all, when ACC went down yesterday, was it? We're all cool, we can sit there, we'll wait, it'll come back up, but when it's custom built, oh, you gotta fix it now, because it's custom. So that's all good, but yeah, we just have to analyze that and figure out what the best is. We all feel the ACC breaks, eh, when that happens. Those are tough days. Yes. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
How have you started looking at, with all the data coming around, the sensors to match that with employee well-being and productivity? And are you looking at, extending those metrics into the people part of that are in the studio?
I'd love to do that more. So yes, because when I describe I think people are the best data source, but it's capturing the data of the people that's a challenge. So that one about product usage, that's about people engagement, right? So that gives me a metric that I can use technologically to learn something about people. But a well-being metric, oh, that's huge. And I would love to be able to better connect that or even quantify that in a manner that makes sense as a piece of data.
Have you thought about possibilities of what you would consider good good metrics to build something like that?
Well, like employee well-being is tough, right? So sometimes I've always wondered how you would capture information on how do you feel factor. And I don't know what that would be, right? But that would be amazing. Like if there was a way, like you know how sometimes they bring up Mentimeter and the first slide is happy face, middle, medium face. Imagine you walk in every day and you do a how do you feel, just one of 3 emoticons. And then you leave at the end of the day, do a how you feel. And if there's a discrepancy, that's an interesting data point that something can be done. But it's about how do I actually capture that data to start? And maybe what I just said is possible as a testimony. So
We're already talking about it.
there we go, we're talking about it. I love it. So yeah. Jess, you have a question?
Oh, I was curious if you've been looking at all at Microsoft Fabric and Data Lake.
Fabric?
Mm-hmm.
No. I'm
They
looking
announced it a
at
couple
Graph API I've been playing with, but not.
Yeah, so they're calling it One Lake. It's like OneDrive for all your data, and so it'll allow
Data
you.
Lake.
Yeah.
Data Lake. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I've heard of Data Lake. I haven't.
So basically, they'll let you tie into like your on-prem SQL, your Azure SQL, anywhere you can tie like AWS. And you'll have basically like when you go into Power Query and Power BI, like you'll just have everywhere your data is. And then it's all on Parquet bricks, so you can actually call stuff into Power BI super fast. So you could actually look at all 5 years of your Revit data.
You should look at that. Sounds good.
So how do other firms start doing this? Do they hire a data analyst?
They would need a passionate champion, right? So a data analyst could be the start, but you need corporate buy-in as well, right? So if our CEO was here, I'd point her out in the room, I'd say she's empowered me to make this happen. So yeah, you need a champion, somebody who can actually make the data dance, and you need the organization to have that, yes, this is worthwhile as a thing to do.
And you also need to have a story. That's a big part of winning people, right? You have to have
Story.
a story of why, what are you going to do with it, what are you going to do.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Well, just to his point, as you go to school for architecture, now you're asked to do other things. Do you outsource it? Do you learn it yourself? Do you bring in talent?
And that's the challenge, and you think if it's not beyond architecture, engineering, the construction organization, and facility managers. Because the digital twin aspect, as much as we want to play with it as architects, it's about FM. It's not about architecture, let's be real. So the FM people, the owners, the operators, all of our clients, if they don't have champions in their organization saying, hey, I went to AU, I heard Brent talk at BILT, we need this in our organization, all I can do is keep presenting it, but they need the champions to make it happen, and then that's when digital twins will thrive. Coupled with government guidance. If we had our federal and local governments really pressing for this in various ways, then we would have an avenue to make it happen, because that would push owners, who would then get the champions, that would then be a catalyst in making it become a reality.
Have you had success with some of your clients?
With some, yeah. So I've had in my 20 years, yeah, in various areas across the globe. At Turner Fleischer, with a couple of clients, we're having digital twin discussions. Some are setting up digital twins for specific, like very, very focused, and that's cool, right? And then we're able to expand, hey, did you know this is possible? And see where it goes. So we take it step by step, right? Expose clients to existing conditions capture. So use laser scanning to capture what's there. Take that laser scan, connect it to your developing information, whether it's a model or elsewhere, turn it over, now look at what can potentially be done. So you'll take little pieces and send it through this growth story that could potentially bring or make the value potentially evident.
What kind of like data IoT data or?
Some are IoT data for performance of equipment. So like temperature sensors are huge in some of our clients. Some it's just like equipment maintenance, how often our equipment is failing and why, right? Others just want to have connectivity to all the stuff that is collected during construction. That I've been saying this for 20 years, want to pull stuff out of the filing cabinet and put it somewhere digital. Well, throwing it all on the cloud, it's still just a digital filing cabinet if it's not correlated in some sort of a system. So often it's heavily there to say, hey, how do I just connect all this stuff? And that's kind of what we did, right? We finished the construction, all the stuff was digital, but filing cabinet. Now we're starting to scrape it, connect it, and now suddenly there's a use case developing itself in our facilities manager. Yes, sir.
From just like an overall business management perspective, going through this exercise and setting all this stuff up, do you find that like your billings are higher, your margins are better, your employee retention is better? Like, what are your own KPIs from a corporate management governance perspective that shows that this type of stuff is beneficial?
So there's obviously the financial KPIs. So with all of the overhead put in to create these items, obviously, so the profit level did not dip, it got better. Now I don't say, well, it's all because what we know, but so we didn't compromise profit. So that's a good thing because we definitely increased effort to build some of these things. Then there's the efficiency on capturing and creating. So we're watching the metrics of our fee proposals. Well, suddenly we know, hey, look at that. We have not only a lot of fee proposals, but they're continually a lot. And we can track how quickly they come in and go out. So those deltas on delivery are now shrinking. So I've submitted it on day X, and it's being approved and delivered on day Y, and that's shrunken. And that's the thing of beauty. We've captured, we've become more efficient with our billings. So that end of the month, we need the project managers to review. We need all of our holds and write-offs to be captured, and we need all our consulting invoices to be processed. All of that's happening with like a deadline of the 22nd or 3rd of the month, efficiently, right? And we can see trends. Oh my God, we had a spike on the 21st last month. Why? Who were they? Let's talk about it. Boom. Suddenly that spike shifted over. Now there was more time to look. So we can see all of that coming as a consequence of just having the data exposed and visible, or just having the data, let alone having it exposed.
Another question. What do you think a client needs to have in order to take full advantage of what you need? Let's talk about the revenue model. And in my case, for example, I'm the cabin manager for Tampa Airport. But what type of personnel do you think that we should have that we can take advantage of this? For example, in your case, you mentioned you have a council of 3 people that decide what to do, how to operate. But once you deliver that, maybe the airport, the client is basically receiving that, they just store it, not using it.
So interestingly, a lot more of our clients have needs, right? So people like me, and that's cool. And like you don't need a Brent, but they have somebody who's in charge of technology. And then suddenly we go into a meeting and you have a client that's, or a member of the client that's spewing Revit particulars. Whoa, okay, this is different. And then when they're defining the deliverables, the client having a person that understands the potential of the deliverable. So they don't have to know how to use Revit, but they have to know that if I give you a Revit file, it will contain these sorts of things. And then if I'm able to understand what's possible, maybe that means I need a data analyst. Maybe it means we need a software developer. Or maybe because you're Tampa Airport, right? You've got some probably phenomenal people. So maybe it's, hey, that person in the management of the baggage, that you built that system, scrape that person's knowledge and connect that system to this data and let's make something new. And that's something I've done in my past. There was a system and I had my, as I was told, Brent, all your BIM stuff. I had my BIM stuff and we put the BIM stuff and the system together and we actually built something intriguing. And that would, like for the airport, you guys have probably amazing people.
Yeah.
Right? But if you mention BIM and Revit, they probably go, oh. But you mention databases, platforms, and accessing, connecting data, they probably do it better than any of us. Yes, sir.
Apologies if you mentioned it, but for your IoT, do you build like a custom platform to like scrape MQTT data and store it in SQL, or are you using like a cloud solution?
So our director of technology, so he built a customized script, I guess is right. It's not really a platform, but yeah, he built this script that collects the data properly. And so the same for our IoT sensors and the whole journal stats thing. Because when I came to Turner Fletcher, he said, how are you guys doing that? Because these two things were kind of active, and he showed. So it's quite the process that's scripted, but again, it's all automated. The journals are overnight, and IoT every 5 minutes to make sure that it stays correlated and connected. And then you get the fun, right? So remember, IT does our infrastructure. So our Wi-Fi went down. All the sensors were disconnected for a week, and it broke my heart. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not getting any data for this. So they had to read all the fun stuff, right? So that all happens. So you're dependent on the infrastructure, dependent on things being up and running, and just being able to pull all this stuff together. Yes, sir.
Curious in the data that from your own firm, a lot of firms don't have nearly this type of data, but do have an understanding of accounts payables, what's coming in the door, payroll, what's going out the door. It may be time to lay off some people. Your data can be used to sort of track who the dead wood maybe in the firm is. Is there a correlation between what you're getting from a Revit journal, from your production staff, versus what you're seeing on a timesheet? Some of the things I'm hearing from firms is, sometimes the younger generation, that they spend more time on sort of personal things and not, right into the work. Is that kind of stuff that you're seeing? And if so, do you have some nervous people in your firm that are kind of concerned about where their data is being used by management?
So at the end, no. For the nervous people, no. Like, we're open, honest. This is what we do. We present it at town halls, and we use the data to bring betterment. But putting on the business management hat, yes, I can sit with the partners, and obviously I didn't show those dashboards, but we do have dashboards looking at the entire financial performance. And you get into key performance indicators for how well is your revenue being created, how well are your people's salaries being effectively utilized, etc. And then we can just start to connect and say, oh look, we have interesting trends. What do we want to look at? How those specific projects are performing, how those specific users are interacting. Can we improve something over here to better something over there? So we look at it all, but it's not like, it's in the deadwood comment. It's not from that perspective, I'd say. So we wouldn't use the data to say, okay, here's the collection of people to be laid off type thing, but it would definitely be guiding towards, I think there's a learning opportunity here, a training opportunity here, and all of that should have a result. Wait a month, what's the result? Go back and refine. And that's kind of how the data like the full circle business data comes together.
So a bit of a follow-up question to that, then. Yeah. Do employees have access to that data? If they wanted to use their data to see, when the performance review's coming up, they want to, renegotiate their salary, and they can look at their own data and say, hey, look at this, I'm twice as productive than I was a year ago.
So they have their usage data, everybody has access to it, but not like financial data is at an elevated level. Yeah. So nobody can look at that project data. Cool. Any other questions? Sir?
I have one more. So when a company starts this effort, for example, my company I feel like is very behind, especially seeing stuff like this, but we're in the process of trying to just gather the information in one place, and right now it's at the point of tables in a SharePoint folder, just updated once a week. I spend an hour of my time pulling financial data, CRM data,
right.
some project data, some design data in one place, and then using Power BI to connect them all together. It's just like, what's the next step? Just getting start archiving everything into a SQL server, or
that's what it sounds like. You're primed for a SQL server, because that would be where I say most of our data, when we have something new, it starts with a spreadsheet. Like I said, what can we collect? Hey, let's collect it. Let's look at it. Great. Now, if we put it into SQL, how do we then further it and advance it? Who can? And then what can we build to interface? then that's where these SQL connection, so build a web form that pushes it into SQL, and then you tell people, go here and update these 5 things, auto updates your SQL, auto syncs your Power BI, and I think that would be the next logical path for what we just described. Thank you. Cool. Thank you, everybody.